A savage wind howls through the glen, and the snow is falling thick and fast, blanketing the heather and moss. You are tucked in bed, trying to sleep despite the appalling weather outside, but you hear a noise nearby, cackling, and the clatter of tools from the shed. Donning a warm coat and boots quickly, you hasten outside from your croft to investigate, ready to drive away a potential thief. You open the shed door, poised to strike, heart in mouth, and there, sat on a stool, going through your toolbox, is a ghastly creature. He has hind legs of a goat with long, almost fang-like teeth, nails which resemble claws and shaggy hair, with pointed ears and a grim face. A faun-like being, if you will, though less human-like and more akin to a goblin. Your dwelling is now being haunted by a Gaelic fairy of the glens and corries, the Ùruisg. Unlike their more southerly counterpart, the brownie, or Ùruisg in Scottish Gaelic, the Ùruisg is not an ancestral spirit of your household, willing to do small chores around the house and farm for a mere bowl of cream. He is a wild and mischievous creature, which spends much of the year out in the remote wilderness of the Highlands, lingering by streams, waterfalls, and craggy outcrops, appearing to wanderers in the evening. But when the Caledonian winter rolls in, with its wind and biting cold, Ùruisgs come down into the glens, to the crofts and villages of man, to dwell in their barns and homes. Despite their solitary lifestyle, Ùruisgs crave human attention, and will try and make conversation with humans, particularly those up late at night carrying out some kind of nocturnal activity. But since their appearance is grim, most are repulsed, and attempts to be rid of them are undertaken. If sufficiently charmed, the Ùruisgs can be coaxed into becoming a loyal and domesticated helping hand about the croft or mill. And indeed, many clan chiefs are known to have had Ùruisgs as servants, such as the MacFarlanes and the MacLachlan's. But if crossed, they can become a great terror to the area, making off with sheep and committing acts of arson. The Ùruisg is a slow and dim-witted being, however, and tricks can easily be played upon it. The Ùruisg, which for the most of the year frequented the ravine of Ùruisg near Lochaber, one winter took refuge in a bothy where a young dairymaid stayed. Every evening, as she warmed herself by a turf fire, going about her work, he would come in and create a nuisance of himself, asking her incessant questions. The dairymaid was fed up with the Ùruisg, but being a good lass, was mindful of the local spirits, and knew that to upset it could bring terrible misfortune, so she lumped his company until one evening he became so airset that she decided she would risk the wrath of the Ùruisg and his kin. As usual, he was squatting by the fire, babbling away, when he suddenly asked her what her name was. The girl paused for a moment before replying, "Myself and myself." "Myself and myself," mused the Ùruisg, raising an eyebrow. "Now that is a curious name." "Never mind, that is what I am called," the girl briskly responded as she added another block of turf to the fire. All this while, a pot of whey hung over the fire, gently bubbling on the heat, and as she went to take it off, he was, as usual, in her way, and obstructing her. The dairymaid eventually snapped and purposely allowed a large portion of the boiling whey to spill over onto the Ùruisg, who stumbled and shrieked out in agony, limping with howls from the bothy into the cold night, crying out into the glen that he had been burnt. The other Ùruisgs came from their hovels to meet him, and inquired as to who had wronged him. "Myself and myself," he seethed through his gritted teeth. The Ùruisgs looked amongst themselves, perplexed. "Well, if you had burnt yourself, that can't be helped. Be more careful next time. If it had been done by a man, we would have burnt him to death, and set the bothy and all that was in it on fire. Bearing this in mind, unless you have a very crafty way to be rid of an unwanted Ùruisg, leave it a saucer of milk and a small portion of food, and if you see it, be polite. In return, you may find some of your household chores completed for you, and it will watch your livestock." Scotland is covered with nods to the Ùruisg in its maps and landscape. Eas na Ùruisg, the Ùruisg Cascade, Clac na Ùruisg, the Ùruisg Stone, Coil nan Ùruisgan, Ùruisg Corrie, and Sloch dan Ùruisg, Ùruisg's Hollow. This reminds us that our landscape is teeming with ancestral folk memories, many of which, due to the decline of oral storytelling, are fading away, and to many people a rock or a tree is just an inanimate object. But our land is alive and well, and we should rekindle the spirit of our forefathers who walked in a Scotland rich with folklore and legend. As one of Britain's finest storytellers, J.R.R. Tolkien, once remarked, "Family life must have been different in the days when a family had fed on the produce of the same few miles of country for 6 generations, and that perhaps was why they saw nymphs in the fountains and dryads in the wood. They were not mistaken, for there was, in a sense, real, not metaphorical connections between them and the countryside. What had been earth and air, and later corn, and later still bread, really was in them. We, of course, who live on a standardized international diet, are artificial beings and have no connection, save in sentiment, with any place on earth. We are synthetic men, uprooted. The strength of hills is not ours."